Hi, my name is Sharon, and I came to party. No, I'm just kidding.
That was the old me, y'all. That was the old me.
My name is Sharon, and yes, I came to party. But a little bit about myself. I'm 32 years old. I came to know the Lord, I want to say 2009, but maybe 2008. It's a little foggy there. My husband today, who he is today, actually invited me to church. And that's kind of how everything unraveled and unfolded. But before then, I did not believe that there was God. I just was caught up in like the science of all things. And so I didn't think God was real. And I think it was more of just like an internal pain and trauma thing that I was going through. Since I can remember, I kind of had a dysfunctional home. I had both of my parents, my mom and my dad, both immigrants, came here from Mexico, and that's all we had. It was just my siblings and my parents. And, my dad wasn't very present. I seen a lot of abuse in the home, and like with him and my siblings and with my mom and with myself, and so that was just kind of the dynamic of my house, of just not knowing what will happen at any moment, and if you're even doing anything right. And then at a very young age, I just started to deal with, sexual abuse in different forms. And I think by the time I was 12 years old, that's when things really took a toll on me. I put myself in a situation where, I got taken advantage of, and was just around the wrong people, and I started to, dabble in drugs and alcohol. And that was just most of my teenage life. And then shortly after that, I got into a very abusive relationship for a couple of years, and that really took a huge effect on my mental health and how I viewed myself. And so I was at a very low place, and every day I was on some form of drug, wherever I can get it from, whoever I can get it from. And so just to kind of help me numb the pain, and then also just keep me calm and collected, and that was just most of my life. And then I was very suicidal then, and so I got to a place where I kept attempting suicide, and then eventually I ended up in the hospital, and I had to drink that nasty charcoal stuff. It was disgusting. I ended up in the hospital. They had to pump my stomach, and I don't recall this. I had to hear this from my mom after. But after that, I just went back home, and everybody just pretended like everything was normal, and nothing got addressed. So that's just kind of where I was. And then my husband, Freddie, who I met in high school, he was just like my really good friend. I didn't really see myself getting with someone like him, just because, I felt like I was just a super broken person, and I felt like he was just like this, like, good guy, full of joy, like, I didn't know his background either, though, so, but I was just like, man, I'm gonna mess this dude up, so I'm like, I better just stay far away. And at the time, the guy I was with too was very, obsessive, and just too much. But after I attempted suicide, a couple months later, he came to my mind, and at that point I went to a different school than him, and I just called him. I literally had his number memorized, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I don't memorize nobody's. I don't even know my own number, but I had his number memorized. But I just called him, and we had a conversation on the phone, and he invited me to youth service. And that night we watched Passion of the Christ. And the next day, I came to church, and that's when I encountered Christ and came to the Lord. And that's when God really started to work on me and do a number on me, I guess you can say. I was kind of in and out, not gonna lie, from the beginning. I was involved in ministry and in the church there in Utah, and helping with children's church, cleaning, food pantry, um, worship, whatever role you can find. I was involved, but at the same time, I also was playing church because I was doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And so that was kind of the broad spectrum of my beginning stages of coming to Christ. And I eventually had a moment with God. I was drunk in a passenger seat and I was throwing up all over myself. And God just spoke to me and he's like, "Are you done yet? Are you done?" And it broke me in that moment. And I'm like, "Yes, Lord, I'm so sorry." It was that kind of moment. But I just had an encounter, and from then I was like, okay, I have to change where the direction I'm going, because this isn't working and this isn't helping me, and I want to serve God fully. And there's been instances throughout our life as adults. At that point I was already married. I had my son at a young age, and then we had another daughter, and I felt like shortly after that our faith really got tested. My daughter ended up being hospitalized for getting sick, and it was definitely an encounter from the Lord of just, you either invite me into this or you don't. It was just kind of this question that I had on my heart, and I was like, you know what, God, I want to do this with you. I want to dive into this whole thing with you, and I can't imagine not having you involved in this. And we prayed every day and ushered his presence into the room, and God even was allowing us to minister to people in that hospital, and we were getting amazing reports from people saying, "Oh, he woke up." They thought he was never going to wake up, and he woke up, and I thank you for your prayers. And so it was amazing to see stuff like that with, even still with my daughter being on life support, and us not knowing if she was going to wake up or not. But she's alive and well. She's a living, breathing testimony, and I believe that God really used her to minister, not to our family, but to the nation. Really, God did a work through her, even in the bad, in the worst part, in the worst place to be. God really turned it around for His good. And then after that, I believe that God just started to work in our marriage even more, work in our family. We asked God where He wanted us, and He sent us to San Antonio, and where we served Him, and we served His people, and we're able to have godly relationships begin to form in our lives. God, there's no accident or coincidence when it comes to the Lord. He really brought the United Prophetic Network really into my life before it was even formed. The people in it. But I believe God was very intentional with that. So to fast forward to now, God has me serving with this team, United Prophetic Network, where we are able to just pray and intercede for our nation. For people groups. I know that we've had missions trip to serve at churches, and even just minister to First Nations. We've also just got the privilege to go on to a national trip, and so it is a humbling experience, a growing experience. I just believe that God's not done, and he wants to use people like me to minister and preach the gospel to our nation. And that's all I want to do, is just do His will and whatever He wants me to do. And thanks for watching. Bye.